Hey everyone, welcome to Small Business Strong. I'm your host, John Lane, and today we're going to be talking about fence repair, specifically fence repair versus fence replacement. What are the things you as a homeowner need to know before taking on this job? The first main question you need to ask yourself is this fence actually failing or is it just rough? Some of the sub questions I tell my clients to consider when they're talking about fence repair versus fence replacement would be: first, are you being forced to fix or replace the fence from the city, the HOA, code enforcement? That's the first big question. Second would be, do you care about how it looks, functionality, those types of things? Third would be, how long are you going to be in the house? Are you going to be here for another year? Or are you just wanting to get through the next 3 months to sell the house? Or is this your forever home? Let's talk about repair from my perspective. So if you're having one or two loose pickets, the fence is 5, even 8 years old, if you are having one or two bad posts, if a few of your posts are leaning, those are all things that can be fixed for under $1,000. I mean, that just totally makes sense. So from my perspective and from my business standpoint, some of the fence repair jobs are anywhere from 600 to about 2 grand. And I've done every type of job from straighten out fence posts, to replace a few pickets, to replace a couple of sections, to restaining the whole fence. Most of these are cosmetic issues. I also do a ton of gate latch adjustments. That's probably my number one call as it relates to fencing. Let's hop over to when it is best to replace the fence. So typically when I go on site for an estimate, the things I'm looking for is condition of the wood. Yes, the posts matter, but more often than not, you can fix leaning posts. And by the way you fix leaning posts is, you need to check first if the post is actually bent, where the base of the post comes in contact with the concrete. If it's bent there, that whole post needs to be replaced. If it's not bent, if the section is just leaning and basically the post is straight all the way down through the concrete, that can be fixed. And the way that's fixed is you dig around the concrete, straighten the post, and add new concrete. So if your fence is leaning, that's more repair versus replace. Now, if the wood is not good, if the wood's old, splintering, rotten, tons of pickets are broken, that's probably replacement territory. Another big deciding factor is if you've spent several $1,000s repairing this fence and you're having either a fence company or a handyman or someone repair this fence once a year and it's just starting to eat a hole in your pocket, you might look into getting a full replacement. At that point, it might make sense. Now, in the DFW area, you're probably looking at price wise, if you're going to do an 8-foot board on board cedar fence, you're probably in the $10,000 to $15,000 range just for a basic. I'm not talking about cedar wrapping the posts. I'm not talking about any designs. But for not really even talking about stain at that point either, you're probably looking at $10,000 to $15,000. And so just to help you get a realistic number in your head, that's what we'd be looking at as far as full replacement goes. The way I like to look at a fence, since it's everyone that owns a home has a fence. The way I like to view it is a used car analogy. So when you have a used car, the expectation is, if you pay cash for that car, you don't have a car payment, but you're going to be paying in maintenance. Things go out on it, things break on it. You're going to pay every few months, take it to the shop and get several things done on it. And that's kind of an expectation. But when you have a new car, you have an expectation that the car's going to run great for a while and you will likely only be at the shop for oil changes, tire rotations, the occasional battery, top off fluids, things like that. So that's kind of how I view a fence. If you have the cash reserves to make that upfront investment and that it's going to be something that you do not want to think about for the next 5, 8 years besides staining, then that might be better for you. One thing I wanted to talk about is the importance of staining. So whether you have a brand new fence that your fence guy just installed and that price might not have included stain, which typically it doesn't. Sometimes it does, but whether that price includes in stain or not, I would always highly recommend getting it stained as soon as possible. So if it's treated wood that you're using, treated wood has to sit out for a week or 2 or 3, just depending on what kind of weather you're having. But staining it as soon as possible is imperative to the life of your fence. So if you're doing a new fence, I'd have it stained as soon as possible. If you are just doing fence repair, what I recommend if you need some boards repaired and if your whole fence needs staining would be repair several boards and then stain the entire fence. That way everything gets stained one color. These are the 3 biggest mistakes I see homeowners make. Please don't do these. The first thing would be putting a Band-Aid on a fence that is too far gone. So it needs to be replaced, and we're just putting extra pickets on. We are, at this point, stacking pickets on top of each other because the rails aren't holding. And, I understand from this perspective of just getting it a little bit further along, especially if the client does not have the upfront cash reserves. But this is something that eventually could be damaged by wind and actually cause more damage. The second mistake I see is not a super common one, but it's still made. So it's when people will replace a fence that really just needs some repair. And this can be deceiving because from my perspective, like I see a lot of fences that need to be stained. And yes, the wood looks old, weathered, it has mildew on it, or it looks just weathered and gray, and people think, oh, at this point it needs to be replaced. But if the wood is good and if it's not splintered and there's not holes in it, like it really can last a long time just with a stain. And that's where I'd recommend, hey, if you're able to pay between $1,000 and $2,000 and get this thing stained, it'll last for another 8 or 9 years, to where you can then save up and have the money then, and you'll still have a great looking fence at that point. The last mistake I see homeowners make is choosing to go with the least expensive bid. And this is common with all things in the general contracting handyman world. So I see it a lot with, we'll talk about kitchen cabinets. I see it a lot with tile jobs, flooring jobs, really any larger trade specific job, but I definitely see it with fencing. So if you do get 3 bids, which is what I always recommend, and there's a world of difference in these bids. So one is 15,000, one's 12,000, and one is 6,000. Obviously the $6,000 bid is attractive because it's less expensive, but question your fencing contractor or your handyman. Why is this price different? Is it a different scope? Were the other 2 quotes cedar and this one is treated pine? Was it untreated wood? Is it fir? Like what kind of wood is it? Really asking your contractor or handyman questions is imperative to know the value you're getting. The reason I put out podcast episodes like this are because these mistakes are easily avoidable by having knowledge. And so realistically, these are all questions that you can ask your fencing contractor and that they should know. One thing before you choose a fencing contractor is, and I cannot hit on this enough, I always say go through references. You want someone that has worked for a friend or a neighbor or someone that you know to vouch for their quality of work. This is absolutely huge in the general contracting arena, handyman arena. They're going to be in and or around your home. And so with fencing, have them out. They're going to have to measure anyways to get you an estimate. So they'll measure linear footage of your fence. They'll then talk to you about, do you want cedar? Do you want treated pine? Do you want board on board, side by side? Do you want another style? Do you want wrought iron? What all do you want? And obviously, you want a company that has great reviews. You want someone that when they come out, it doesn't feel salesy. It feels like they're just trying to give you the most information so that you can make an informed decision. That's what I do with all of my clients. That's one of the reasons, and maybe I should do this, but it's one of the reasons I do not follow up. I give my clients in one message, I give them the scope of work, the price, and the date all in one message. And so that removes confusion and that leaves the ball in their court. There's never any pressure. So asking yourself, how do I feel when I'm walking the property with this fencing contractor is huge. Let's get into some of the more detailed questions that you should ask your fencing contractor when they come out. If you do choose repair, ask your fencing contractor how long this repair is going to last. They should know this. Something I like to ask repairmen when they come to my house is, hey, if this was your house, what would you do? And then finally ask them this question, say, hey, if you do this repair today, Will I be calling you back in a year? So we see there's a lot of variables in deciding whether to repair or replace your fence. At the end of the day, it's what's best for you. If you do have the cash reserve to go ahead and replace a fence that is 80% gone, and it's going to take more money to repair over the short term than is just replace, I would always recommend going for it. If you are in a tight spot and you just need your fence to stretch a couple of years or even a couple of months, then you might be in the place where you just need to repair. I had one job where, a drunk driver hit the fence and knocked out two sections of it. In that case, the fence was about 10 years old and had plenty of life left. In that case, it was my call just to, hey, go ahead and do these two sections and then restain the whole fence. So I hope that I was able to give you some good information to make your own decision on your own fence. So that's everything I have for today. So thank you so much for tuning in to Small Business Strong, and until next time.